Hello and welcome to episode 5 of season 14 of Sportscene. I'll be your host, Carlo Jimenez, joined by Reagan Griffin Jr. and Sam Marino. Guys, thanks for joining us here on Sportscene. And let's jump right into it. Today we're going to be talking everything from football, the basketball, Pac-12 tournament. But let's start with Evan Mobley. Mobley won the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Player of the Year, the first player to do that in a conference since Anthony Davis in 2011. Guys, did he deserve all 3 awards?
Go ahead and take him here, man. Of course he did. What other option would there have been for all 3 of the awards? Look, I don't think it's disputable that he wins Freshman of the Year. That much, I mean, the dude's about to be the 2nd overall pick in the draft. I don't think it's disputable that he's the Defensive Player of the Year. There's not a single player in this conference that had a higher defensive impact than Evan Mobley. The one point of discussion might be Player of the Year in general, which to me, there's not even a discussion to be had there. Look, we could talk about 16.1 points per game, 7th in the conference. We could talk about 8.6 rebounds in the games, 1st in the conference. We could talk about the 58.2 field goal percentage, that's 3rd in the conference. We could talk about the 2.9 blocks per game, 1st in the conference by far. We could talk about that. But I'm not that much of a stats guy. I like to watch the game and tell you what I saw. If you watched Evan Mobley and the USC Trojans play basketball this year, it was clear and evident that there was no player on the team, no player in the conference that had a higher impact on both ends of the floor. I know a lot of people are going to talk about the defense, and like I said, that's not disputable. But what a lot of people fail to realize is that Evan Mobley on the offensive end has a super high impact as well. When we talk about gravity, and I'll let you go ahead and get into it, Sam, but I want to talk about gravity real quick because that dude sucks defenses in so well, and it creates opportunities for guys like Taj. It creates opportunities for guys like Drew Peterson. It creates opportunities for guys like Ethan Anderson. And he's a hell of a passer. So you guys, he's dumping down to Chavez and Isaiah. He's creating so much for his teammates on both ends of the floor. It's ridiculous that we're even having this conversation, man. Evan Mobley was the year in this conference.
Yeah, 100%. You talk about, you want to look at this from the standpoint of best player in the conference, a guy at his height, his length, with the skills to pass, handle, and finish the way he can. There's nobody better than him in the conference, and it's not close, like he said. I mean,
it's close. It's close. Hold on. This is Evan Mobley's last 3 games: 11 versus Utah, 10 versus Stanford, 13 versus UCLA. I don't know about you guys. That's not Pac-12 Player of the Year.
What's the record in those 3 games, if you don't mind my asking?
they're 2-1 in those 3 games. They lost
2-1. Because let me tell you why. They had to account for Evan Mobley so much that it created for everyone else around him. What was the game-winning shot against UCLA? a Taj Edey 3-point shot that was darn near wide open because, granted, Ethan had a really nice
Wide
pass and he
open.
blocked out. But so much is having to be accounted for Evan Mobley when you have to throw two bodies on him, when you have to account for a help defender. That's creating opportunities for his teammates. So when we talk about impact, not just statistics, we talk about overall impact. It's Evan Mobley, man.
Well, okay, if you're going to say USC's 2-1 in those last 3 games, Oregon's 10-1 in their last 11 games, losing once to Taj Edey, not really USC, but Taj Edey. And that's the guy. That's the place I want to go. Chris Duarte, guys, 17 points per game, 53% from the field as a guard. I know Evan's shooting like 56% from the field, but as a guard, you're telling me shooting 53%, 44% from outside the arc. That's top 10 in the nation. And the guy spent 10 days twice this year in a hotel room because Oregon had COVID problems. Evan Mobley played ever since that first break earlier in the year. He played through and through. The Trojans didn't really have a lot of cancellations. Duarte had to spend 2 separate occasions without a hoop, sitting in a hotel room, contract traced because quarantining because of contract tracing, and still was able to shoot at a high percentage, still showed up every night, and his team has won 10 of their last 11 games.
Yeah, but what we're not going to do is
supposed to be giving out cookies for them having COVID-19 problems.
I mean, it's more impressive.
That's
it's more
unfortunate,
impressive.
but that has nothing to do with the basketball that we've seen on the court. And granted, the 53%, that's a hell of a statistic. But when I tell you overall impact, and yeah, their last 11 games they were 10-1. What's their overall season record?
Exactly. You want to talk about wins? How about the team with the most wins in the conference? USC, led by Evan Mobley. That's all that needs to be said. Best player on the best team. That's how we're going to look at it.
I mean,
that's a very simple way to look at it. Best player on the best team. We could look at it most talented player on the conference, right? Who's about to enter the draft and be the number 2 overall pick. We can look at it as overall impact. How much are you creating for your teammates? And right, we could talk about assists, but I don't really like to look at assists as a means of statistics that tells you who's producing what for their teammates. I can tell you by looking at the basketball and who's on the court. Hell, when you have 3-4 dudes that are all looking at Evan Mobley and all he has to do is kick out to Noah Bauman and it's a wide open 3, that's light work, man. Evan Mobley is creating so much for his teammates, and as good of a player as Chris Duarte is, and this is not me trying to knock Chris Duarte, Evan Mobley is just that gifted, man. He's generational.
I just think it's tough to say best guy on the best team when Oregon's got the number 1 seed in the Pac-12. Because I think that they won the Pac-12 championship. They're the best team, right? So if we're going best guy on best team, wouldn't it be Duarte?
Yeah, but if we're going on record, I mean, 1 more win, 1 more loss. We're talking games back. There's no difference right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go into that. There's a great article by John Wilner in the Mercury News. Oregon tried to schedule 2 games at UCLA before February 1st, and UCLA said, no, we don't want to play you because they didn't like the Monday game. So Oregon tried to get those games in. You should really be mad at UCLA for them saying, like, oh, sorry, we didn't want to play on a Monday. I don't think you can knock Oregon. I mean, they went to USC on a Monday after playing the Arizona schools. Yeah, they got their butts whooped, but I mean, I don't think a lot of programs would say, yeah, I want to play the best team in the conference after being in the desert and playing one of the harder road trips. It's tough to knock Oregon for not playing games when they tried to schedule games.
Well,
I'm not knocking Oregon.
Man, sorry to cut you off. We can put it this way. When we talk to coaches around the conference, when we go to UCLA's head coach and Oregon State, this conference that's coming up, and everyone's game planning for who they're going to have to face, we ask these coaches, we say, yo, who's harder to account for? Who's a bigger problem for you? Evan Mobley or Chris Duarte? You know everybody's going to say Evan Mobley, man. Evan Mobley is a problem. He's a problem. He is a problem. And Chris Duarte is a problem in his own right, but Evan Mobley is that gifted, man. I have to account for him on offense. I have to throw 2-3 bodies at him just to make sure he doesn't light me up for third. On defense, I can't even get to the rim because of his presence. Yeah, he's over there helping somebody. 1 step, 1 stride, he's across the court. He's blocking my guard shot to high hell, man. Evan Mobley is a problem on both ends of the floor. Coaches have to account for him. Teams have to account for him. It's just too much, man. He has so high of an impact on all facets of the game.
Exactly. You watched that game up at Washington State earlier this year. Isaac Bonton came in. He scored like 20+ in his last 5 games, and he got nothing at the rim. And they doubled him off ball. They were denying off ball. They were allowed to put so much defensive attention on Isaac Bonton because Mobley was that solid inside. His ability as just a solo defender and to carry that defense on his back at times is what allowed them to shut down Isaac Bonton in that game and ultimately escape Pullman with a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Evan Mobley done has been impressive, but I don't think, like, in terms of what's been more impressive, it's been Chris Duarte, no doubt. There's one guy who's taller than Evan Mobley in the league, and that's Riley Soren at UW. And UW, I think, has the 10th seed, and Riley Soren's 7-4. So, I mean, if I was 7'1" with a 7'4" wingspan, I'm sure I could block 3 shots a game too. No disrespect, but I think Chris Duarte, guys, we got to talk about this 53% shooting percentage.
Am I giving out cookies for him being shorter?
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's more impressive. It's more impressive. We're talking about player of the year. Who has been more impressive? I think Duarte has been more impressive throughout the year, considering what he's gone through, considering what position he plays, and considering this is his 4th year in the league. It's not like teams don't know Chris Duarte. There's an adjustment period for Evan Mobley. Nobody really knows. But for Duarte to come in here his senior year and play this well on a team that has seen so many obstacles is by far more impressive than 7-foot Evan Mobley looking over double teams and passing the ball out.
But it's not like teams were game planning for Chris Duarte in Oregon in years past. It was Peyton Pritchard. I mean, he was not the focus of defenses. This is his turn in the spotlight now. He hasn't been the Oregon star the last 4 years. And we can't also forget he's 4th in the conference in scoring. He's the 5th leader in the conference in scoring, plays on his team. There are other scorers, there are other creators that on his team that open up the scoring for him, that open up those opportunities.
Not to mention, yeah, you go ahead, man.
No, go for it. We'll get you one last thing.
Not to mention the fact we could talk about, he's been in the conference for 4 years, but is that not more impressive that Evan Mobley came in out of high school at age 18, 19, lighting dudes up like this? Like, I get it, he's tall, but basketball is in its nature a very physically driven game. You could have all the IQ in the world, but if you're 5'6", you're not going to be able to last on the court. So the fact that he's 7 feet tall and he has a 7'4" wingspan plays to his advantage. That's what makes him such a hell of a basketball player. That in conjunction with the fact that he's one of the smartest dudes in the Pac-12, if not the highest IQ player in the Pac-12. We talk about his ability to move the ball. We talk about his ability to anticipate what's going to happen on the defensive end. We talk about his ability to anticipate and see where the double's coming from and be able to immediately kick to that player for a wide open shot. The dude has it all. He checks all the boxes, man. He checks them all. That's your player of the year.
All right. Well, AP agrees with me. The coaches agree with you guys. Let's move on. Let's talk about a USC alumni who's playing in the big boy league. Sam Darnold in the NFL. There's a lot of talk about him moving around. The Jets have a high draft pick this year. Guys, when the NFL season rolls around, will Sam Darnold be in New York? What do we think?
Yes, absolutely. I think with Robert Saleh coming in, you sort of got a new wave of leadership there. I think, especially not being at 1. If they were at 1, I think this is a different story. But there's not a consensus on a slam dunk prospect. I really like Justin Fields, but that's not a shared sentiment, really. And so there's not a slam dunk guy. There's not a guy to go get. So I think they roll with Sam Darnold. They've got the draft capital, especially from the Jamal Adams trade. They've got the cap space to go make moves, to bring in a guy like a Chris Godwin from Tampa Bay, maybe even a Juju to help Darnold out. I think they roll with Darnold and see what they have. I think it makes the most sense. He's younger than Joe Burrow and he's younger than Josh Allen, and he's only a year older than Fields and Mac Jones in this draft.
I'll say that, man. And I agree with you. I'm very much a Sam Darnold fan and supporter. I think he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. But I believe that Deshaun Watson will be a New York Jet. And by doing that, I think that Sam Darnold will ultimately be a Houston Texan. I want to talk about why I believe that Deshaun Watson is going to be a Jet, though, because I think that if the Jets front office was smart, which I believe they are, I have a lot of faith in Joe Douglas. He was part of that 2017 front office that constructed the Super Bowl winning roster for my Philadelphia Eagles. He knows the value of elite quarterback play. When we talk about Carson Wentz, my guy, who played at that point in time, he was an elite quarterback. Nick Foles for about 3-4 games was an elite quarterback. He knows the value of a dominating quarterback. And Deshaun Watson is one of the dominating quarterbacks in the NFL today. If you have an opportunity to go get a guy like that, if you're a smart front office, you will. And I believe Joe Douglas is a smart dude. He's going to go do that. And he has the leverage and the assets to do it. You just talked about the Jamal Adams trade and the fact that Deshaun Watson no longer wants to be in Houston is enough leverage for you to be able to make that deal happen. So I believe that Sam Darnold is going to be a Houston Texan simply by proxy of the fact that I think that Deshaun Watson is headed to New York because it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I don't think Darnold's wearing green when we return next year. I actually think he's going to be in some from red and gold. I think he'll be over in San Francisco. I think that makes the most sense. Robert Saleh is a 49er guy. I can see him kind of vouching to bring Garoppolo with him to New York. And also the Niners have assets. I mean, they have people who, when you talk about who can trade a pretty penny away, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if like Nick Bosa is in trade talks. Quarterbacks are what win you championships, right? You could have the best D lineman in the game. Go ask Aaron Donald, and you're not going to win championships. Quarterbacks are what win you championships. And I think the Niners know that, considering they've been a quarterback piece away from winning championships these past couple of years. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners go all in to try to get a guy like Sam Darnold in a Kyle Shanahan offense. I think that would be a lot of fun for San Francisco.
There is absolutely no way on God's green earth, no way in hell that Robert Saleh would want Jimmy Garoppolo to be his quarterback again. That dude had an opportunity at a Super Bowl, and his defense played their behinds off for 3 quarters. And all Jimmy Garoppolo had to do, wide open receiver touchdown. Ain't no way that Robert Saleh is going to go back and say, that's the guy I want. He would ride it out with Sam Darnold before he does that. He's seen what Jimmy Garoppolo is capable of. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's an okay quarterback, but he's not getting any better at this point in his career. There's no way that that's the guy who takes a flyer on. If anything, he would go ask for, like you said, those other defensive linemen that he had recruited over there or drafted and developed over there in San Fran. But there's absolutely no way Robert Saleh is like, yeah, I just did this with Jimmy Garoppolo for 3-4 years. Let me try to run it back in New York, because we've seen it. It's tried and failed multiple times.
I don't know. I mean, they went 13-3, and if they run the ball the last 8 minutes like they did, they only did 6 times against. Listen. If they run the football, they ran it 6 times the last 8 minutes, up by 10. They win that game. I don't know if you can put that in Garoppolo versus Shanahan calling plays.
But Shanahan called the play that got Sanders open. He called the play for Jimmy Garoppolo and plain and simply couldn't make the throw. And also, I like Sam Darnold, but let's not act like he's this prized prospect that we're going to be dumping a bunch of assets for. There is no universe where Nick Bosa is worth Sam Darnold. Like you might get a second, and that's pushing it. I like Sam Darnold, but he almost holds more value to the Jets than he does in a trade, unless it's like you said for Deshaun Watson. But I think the Texans are dead set on not moving him, so I don't see that happening. And the other 2 destinations, Indianapolis and Pittsburgh, have already sort of shored up that position for another year.
I'll say this. If it's up to Sam Darnold and you have an opportunity, and just to reference the draft real quick, it's interesting as of late. A lot of people have been pretty sold on Zach Wilson. So I wouldn't be so quick to count out Zach Wilson as an option for the Jets over there at the number 2 pick. He's a very accurate quarterback, and granted, he had one hell of an offensive line at BYU. And if he stepped into that New York Jets situation, he would not be playing with that good of an offensive line. You do have Mekhi Becton, but it's not like you're going to be having these wide open, 5-6 second pockets like he had at BYU. But he is a talented quarterback, and he is a guy that I think could be on their radar. But if you have an opportunity, like I said, to go get a guy like Deshaun Watson, which it seems like they do. We talked about this on a past Sports Scene episode. I was on here with Will Cumardilla. When you have a guy like Deshaun Watson who said, I'm not going to play for you anymore, who's then turned around and reiterated that to the franchise. Yeah, what I said a couple weeks ago, I'm not going to play for you. I'm 10 toes on that. I'm still not going to suit up for the Houston Texans anymore. Trade me. You have all the leverage in the world if you're the New York Jets. There's not a single team in the NFL that can put together a better offer for a quarterback like that. And I should mention, any offer that you get if you trade away a guy like that, you automatically lost. But you need to recuperate as many assets as you possibly can.
I disagree.
There's no team in the NFL that can give you a better trade package than the New York Jets.
What about the Miami Dolphins? They've got the better picks. They've got the treasure trove. They've got Tua. I would argue Tua is a much better option in that trade than Sam Darnold. When you trade away Deshaun Watson, you have to get the ability to get the succession plan. And you've got a 1-year guy in Tua who, he played fine, and the Dolphins stuck to their plan.
I watched Tua Tagovailoa get benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
In multiple rookie season, coming off a season-ending injury. This will be year 4 for Sam Darnold, and we still haven't seen it. Tua, the potential is there with Tua. Tua, just a year and a half ago, we were sitting here saying, tank for Tua. He's the number 1 pick, and now here we are.
Yeah, he was the number 1 pick, and then we saw how good Joey Burrow was. That dude had to wait all the way to number 5 to get his number 5. The thing is, and I believe in Tua Tagovailoa as a prospect, but when it comes to him versus Sam Darnold, I'm going to get the guy with all the things that we were sold on when it came to Tua weren't the physical attributes, right? It was his ability to pick apart a defense. It was his accuracy, and those things did not manifest themselves this past season. Granted, it was his first year, but if that's a sign of things to come, I'm going to take the guy that I believe in his physical attributes and I can develop the other things in terms of the IQ and the accuracy. I'm going to get the guy who's shown me time and again he's capable of making plays that other quarterbacks in the NFL simply can't make. I always make the comparison with Sam Darnold. He's very Carson Wentz-esque. And if you set Carson Wentz up like we've seen, you set Sam Darnold up like we've seen in a situation where they're not entirely on their shoulders to create everything, they're one hell of a quarterback. And I know I always make it about Carson Wentz. I apologize for that. But point being, Sam Darnold is one hell of a quarterback if you set him up with the right people. Now, would I trust Houston to do that? Probably not. But they probably think that they can. So why wouldn't you go get Sam Darnold over Tua Tagovailoa?
I can't see Sam being playing for the Jets. I think the wrong decision would be to build through the draft. Personally, I feel like the draft this year is kind of like the Andrew Luck draft and RG3. We got one quarterback who's going to be really, really good and a lot of guys who we think are going to be good, but we don't really know. So I think he'll be moved. I doubt he's playing in green next year. Yeah. All right, guys. Pac-12 tournament starts in 40 minutes from now. ASU, Washington State tipping off. Let's talk about, Sam, I know you have a bold prediction about this tournament. Hit us with it.
Remy Martin will catch fire and lead Arizona State to the auto bid. They're going to win the Pac-12 tournament, and they'll be dancing come next week. I mean, guard play.
Sipping on some Remy Martin talking about that, man. Like, I get it. I think that ASU was a team that a lot of us thought would be a lot better. We talk about Remy Martin. We talk about Josh Christopher. We talk about Marcus Bagley. Talent. But that talent hasn't come to fruition at any point throughout this year. To make that claim, I'm not sure we have any precedent to go off of other than potential. And at this point in the season, we can't be we can't be betting on potential. We have to have bet on what we've seen throughout the entire season. You ask me, this is USC's tournament to lose, man. When it comes to this stage in March, we're talking about tournaments. You got to have defense, which USC has in spades, and you got to have guards who can play make. Taj Edie, thank you very much. So, yeah, they got players. I wouldn't say that the ASU really has, I wouldn't put them in my top three of teams that could win this tournament.
That's exactly my point, though. You need dominant guard play. And not only dominant guard play, the ball has to run through the guard's hands. The offense has to be run through the point guard. And that's not USC's offense. USC's offense is down in the post. And in these tournament games, when it gets to half-court offense, everything slows down. I mean, Remy Martin against USC and against Oregon, 30 points in each of those games, and in games when less and less points are getting scored, those points become more valuable. And he's been there and he's done it before. He was a National Player of the Year candidate last year. This dude, and should be this year if his team hadn't disappointed this season. It's all about guard play. We saw it with Peyton Pritchard in Oregon just 2 years ago do the exact same thing. They get Washington State, you get past Oregon, it's just 4 games, and a guard can get hot and carry his team that far.
But did they, when he dropped 30 against Oregon and USC, did they win?
They did not win, but I'm saying in these games, when it gets tight, everything slows down, things get easier.
You're making that guard play. That the games get tight, which, if we're going based on precedent, there's no reason to believe that they would.
I'm talking Arizona. I'm talking NCAA tournament runs. You're talking Arizona with DeAndre Ayton. Their best player was a dominant big. They couldn't get past Buffalo in the first round. Duke with Jabari Parker couldn't get past Mercer in the first round. Teams that can't shoot free throws and who run their offense through the post struggle in these single elimination tournaments because you don't have that guy you can rely on to go get you a bucket.
But if Remy Martin turns into Steph Curry, then I'll believe you. But he's going to need to drop in 40 for them to have a chance in this next week. I don't see it happening. Martin's played his best, and they still lost. And he's coming off games. I mean, this past weekend, Colorado and Utah had 14 combined points on a combined 3 for 16 from the field. He had his worst weekend ever before the tournament. He's playing his worst basketball. That ASU team has disappointed all year, and they're going to disappoint again in this tournament. That's just what's going to happen.
You got to
especially when we talk about the fact that once you get into tournament play, it's a lot easier to key in on guys, right? We know what's going to happen for USC and for every team in the tournament. What happens is they key in on the best player, and it becomes contingent on who else in your team can create. So what's going to happen for USC is they're going to key in on Evan Mobley like they've been doing all year. And we have guys USC has guys like Taj Edie, like Isaiah Mobley, like Drew Peterson, who can all create for themselves and others. When you key in on Remy Martin.
But the problem is it's a lot easier to key in on an offense that operates in the post. And we saw Arizona pull it off, and they had no offense down the stretch. The offense was get it to Mobley, either Mobley in the post, and they were going to the line missing free throws. I mean, teams have done this to USC, and that's why they've struggled as of late. I mean, they've won the last 2 games. I know I argued for Evan Mobley for Player of the Year, but when it comes to tournament basketball, it's a whole different animal. You need a dominant guard, and when Remy Martin plays at his best, you're not stopping him. I don't care who you throw at him. It's not going to matter. He is that good. And
you might not be stopping Remy Martin, but you are stopping Arizona State because when he's
go.
played his best games, they have lost.
But I don't think anybody in the Pac-12 is good enough to do that. There isn't a team in the Pac-12 that's good enough to be better than a Remy Martin carry team in a tournament.
The thing is, and it's similar to NBA basketball as well, is when you get into tournament play and playoff play in basketball, what happens is teams are going to say, okay, we're going to take away option 1, or what happens is one of 2 things. We're either going to take away option 1 and force you to rely on option B, C, D, and E, or we're going to take away option B, C, D, and E and let option 1 happen because option 1 is only going to drop 30, 35 points, and you're going to have to account for another 34, 35 points in order to beat us. So whichever way you spin it, if you want to say we're going to take away Remy Martin and force him to rely on his teammates who have time and again come up short, that's not a viable option for you. Or you say we're going to make sure that his teammates don't get anything and allow Remy Martin to do what Remy Martin's going to do. Where do you account for the other 30, 40 points that you're going to need to beat a USC, that you're going to need to beat a Oregon, that you're going to need to beat UCLA? His teammates simply aren't reliable enough, and it can't be a one-man show come tournament time.
But it can be. I mean, but that's what these teams aren't good enough to stop a guy like that. These teams aren't good enough to key in on a guard as good as Remy Martin. We've seen it with Carson Edwards. I mean, obviously, teams in the NCAA tournament were going to throw guys at Carson Edwards, and it did not matter. Same with Steph. They were going to throw guy after Steph Curry, and it just didn't matter. That's it. And it takes one other guy to hit some shots. And these guys are Division I athletes. They're like these guys on this team are capable. They were a tournament team the last 2 years. They're capable of knocking down shots when they need to, 100%. And Remy Martin is good enough that it's not going to matter.
You talk about guys like Carson Edwards and Steph Curry. What were they known for? Like prolific three-point shooting, like really, really good three-point shooters. Martin's a 34% three-point shooter. That's Draymond Green territory. Like he's not like. I agree. He's a great player. He can score really
much
quickly.
More volume than Draymond Green. We're not going to compare Draymond Green's shooting load to Remy Martin's shooting load at Arizona State.
I know, but 34% is not high for a guy who's trying to carry you through a tournament game. I think for him to be that inconsistent. I mean, he's had games where he shot the ball well, but I mean, Remy Martin is gonna have to play otherworldly for them to carry them just to a Pac-12 tournament bid. I think that would be unreal.
Even when we're talking about a single game elimination tournament, like there's no room for error. There's no margin for mistake when it comes to Remy Martin. You have one off game, you have one slip up, you have one off quarter where you shoot 15% from the field. That's it. Because when our producer mentioned Josh Christopher, he hasn't come. He just simply hasn't, and that's a guy who I thought was good. He might be able to push for a lottery pick, but if we're looking at things objectively, Josh Christopher has not proven himself to be somebody who's going to be reliable in those moments where Remy Martin is not hitting his shots. So for Remy Martin, if what you're saying is true, Sam, and Remy Martin is going to be the dude to carry ASU throughout this tournament and through the NCAA tournament, he's going to have to play damn near perfect basketball.
I'm not saying they're going to make a run in the NCAA tournament. I'm saying he's going to carry them through these 4 games to win this Pac-12 title. And who stops them? Who is this dominant team in the Pac-12 that's good enough to withstand a team like Arizona State making a run?
Well, okay, they play Washington State in 34 minutes. Last time they played Washington State, they went to overtime. Martin was 3 for 13 from outside the arc, and they barely won by 3 on a night where Washington State's second leading scorer didn't score because he only played 7 minutes with an injury. So, I mean, you're going to talk about – and their road to the tournament has to be the hardest. Washington State is a good team. Then they got to play Oregon. Then if they win that one, you're either looking at UCLA. I mean – and then a USC, it doesn't get harder than that. It doesn't get harder than that. Maybe if they were playing like a Cal or a Stanford who looks like they just quit playing basketball last week, maybe if they were playing one of those teams, but to play Washington State and then to play Oregon and then to play Oregon State or UCLA and then a USC or a Colorado,
I just don't think any of those teams you mentioned are that good. That's part of this. I think Remy Martin can be good enough, and the Pac-12 doesn't have a dominant team. I mean, Lenardi doesn't have a team above like the 6th line from the Pac-12. These teams haven't proven themselves consistent all year. It seems like someone's taken the mantle on the Pac-12 at the top, and then they slip. USC took the top spot and then slipped. UCLA had it, it slipped. Oregon's had it, and it almost slipped. And Colorado has beaten all 3 of them recently. I mean, there's no team that's had this mantle of consistency either, which is why I think there's an opening for this underdog, and a team like Arizona State, led by a guard as good as Remy Martin, is perfect for that spot.
I'm just not going to be bought or sold on arguments based on volatility, man. Like, I get it. There's a lot
But
of
that
teams.
is tournament play. That's March. March is volatility.
That is March. That's why they call it March Madness for a reason. But your guess is at that point good as anyone's on why, a team would be good. So if I'm going to make my argument, it's going to be based on who in a volatile environment has remained the most consistent. And there's a reason why USC is the only Pac-12 team that's currently ranked in the top 25. They are the most consistent of all of these volatile teams. I'm going to leave them there. I'm going to say that that's your best team.
I'm not 100% they're the best team coming into the tournament, but that's not what tournament play is about. And honestly, if we're talking about inconsistency, the amount of COVID pauses, I mean, like a month ago, they played like 12 games on the season. And Arizona State's had issues within the program as well. And if it all comes together at once, they're capable of beating anybody in that Pac-12.
That's an if, though, man. I don't like ifs. I need to know something solid. I need to know something solid. And
what I do know is this best team in the tournament is worse than 300th in the country in free throw percentage. When these games get tight in tournaments, you have to hit free throws, and USC has proven they can't do that down the stretch.
Well, USC will only play Arizona if they go all the way, so we'll find out there. I think Remy Martin won't carry ASU. I think ASU can outscore anybody any night. I think the team has to outscore. I think the team has to play better for ASU. I don't think and everyone can just fall through.
I think everyone feeds off of him. Remy Martin gets going and someone else gets going, and there you go. Like Klein with Purdue in that run. He got hot and they made their run. When Remy starts playing well, they get this win over Washington State. If you get a win over Oregon, now everyone believes. Everyone's in. Everyone starts making shots. Everyone's confident now. And that team's talented enough that if they're confident, they're scary to anybody.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out in 30 minutes. We'll find out in 30 minutes. That's going to do it for us on Sports Scene. You can find us at Annenberg Media Sports on social media. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, Reagan and Sam. And we will see you next week on another episode of Sports Scene.